All right, everybody. This is Justin Darcy from Shanghai. I'm living the expat life over here, and I'm talking to my favorite singer-songwriter, Vic Ruggiero. And
How's it going?
where are you at now? You're in the Bronx.
We're currently in the Bronx. Yes,
Yeah.
that's.
But you spent some time in Jersey too, right? Is that right?
I've lived between New York, New Jersey. I mean, when you're in New York, you move every 2 years. So
Mm.
to say that I'm from any one place is difficult.
You're a world
And of course,
citizen.
and I haven't lived anywhere for permanently. I haven't lived anywhere for 20 years. So
Right. Well, 20 years is a long
yeah,
time, though.
I'd say. I mean, easily 10. Let's see. I moved out in 2010. 10 years since I lived in my place that was more. I was more settled.
Mm.
It's been a decade since then. So
That's a long time, 10 years. I mean, I haven't lived anywhere for 2 years. 2 years was the longest I lived anywhere in the last, 20 years. I don't know, 20 years maybe.
so you can relate. You can relate to my. Some people can't relate. Some people live in the house they grew up in. Some people, there's people in New York that have apartments. When you find a good one, you keep it. But
I mean, I'd be
I guess
happy. Sure. Yeah.
I
I mean,
meant to stay in Jersey forever, but that fell apart.
sounds like there's a story behind that one.
There's a story. There's a story behind everything.
When we had our first conversation, I was kind of like picking your brain about your influences. And then
Mhm.
after that conversation, and then I also watched a couple of videos of you doing your thing. And then I
Mm.
was just kind of like, oh, it was like, oh, obviously it's like Dylan and fucking Jimi Hendrix and fucking like, it's just like
I'm glad.
everybody who wrote cool story songs. Like,
I'm glad I inspired you to look into the rest of my whatever my catalog of interviews or whatever the hell you had. I like the fact that you're aware of some albums of mine that are favorites of mine, but that don't often come up in conversation with me a lot. I mean,
yeah, so let's talk about that. Which album are we talking about? The Age of Insects?
that one, I love the fact that you asked me about that and that you showed some interest in that, because that's one of my favorites. I consider that that's one of my proudest little things I did at that, especially in that era, which was it was kind of a good period for me, the heading towards the turn of the century, right? The end
And
of
then
the
I
century.
saw after the last interview, I listened to Ypsilanti, that album, and then
Oh yeah.
I heard a bunch of the songs from Age of Insects, and there are a couple. So I gotta say, like, because you got the folk tradition coming in strong on a lot of the songs that you play, which is great. I love it. But like, there's a couple songs that you play that are like harmonically different. They're harmonically different, and it's like there's something different about them. They're like, and that always stuck with me. And I'm gonna get into specifics here.
Okay.
So let's talk. Let's talk about the Age of Insects. Right. This was an album you made in 1999, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that was a year after. And I marked this because my introduction to you guys was in '98 for The Question.
Uh-huh.
And that album was like really influential in my teenage years.
Mm.
Yeah. So first of all, I wanted to ask you, because I told you that last time, and that was something I wanted to tell you for a long time. It was like some personal. I was just like, I wanted to tell if I ever had the chance to be like, that was like an album of great personal significance to me. I just want to know, like, how does that feel to hear that from somebody who's been listening to you?
Well, I have a lot of times people will tell me something. They'll say, hey, I listen to your record every day when I drive to work, and 6 in the morning, or I listen to your music always when I'm cooking,
Right.
or whatever, or you've been the soundtrack to my life since 1996.
Right.
And I tell them, I say, well, gee, thanks a lot. I was wondering what I was doing with my life. Now I know. I'm your soundtrack. Thank you. That's great.
Well, that's good to know, isn't it? I mean,
Hey, shit, man. It's better than nothing, right? It's
that's
good.
a lot of worse things you could be.
Mm-hmm. No, it's, I'm glad that I fit into somebody's. I figure in somewhere.
Well, I'll plug you in for my story. It was my melancholy teenage years, and being like a lovesick teenager. So that was like my on the school bus.
Yeah.
That was, and I would listen to you guys at night too, at nighttime before I went to bed.
I was a lovesick 20-something-year-old that was writing all the songs. So you know,
So
I had a few years. Yeah, but only a few.
So that's the question, and we're gonna get into some more of that later because I do have a list of songs here. Let's go. First, I wanted to get into Age of Insects, and I just want to I want to run down the cast of characters here just to give a shout out here. So you had is it Ara or Era? Ara Babajian.
Yeah, Ara's the drummer with the Slackers right now, and I've known him for Ara Babajian. I've known him for 25, 30 years, the same like everybody that's in the Slackers. I met him with the he was playing in a band called Agent 99 at the time. We always thought they were going to be the guys that did it, you know. Well, they would have been much more popular than us, I feel like, if they had stuck together. But.
So then we got, and I have a lot of praise for I'm a trumpet player myself, and I have a lot of praise for the trumpet players on the album. And then kind of went back to it. I don't know who played on Columbus, both of the solos are good. There's like one on Columbus, Texas.
Yeah, did we not look it up? The guy's, his name is Frank.
No, I got the names, but
you got his name?
It's just not clear. Yeah, hold on a second. So we got the two trumpet players were Nathan Breedlove. And
Nathan with the lights.
And Dean Doolan.
Oh, Danny Doolan. No, that's from those are the that was on the was that on the Age of N6? No, that was on
that's what the Wikipedia
stuff in All Stars and stuff. No. On the Age of Insects, it was the trumpet player from a band called the Klezmatics.
Right. You're telling me.
His name was Frank. I think his name was Frank, and Frank was known because he was at least the detail I remember about him was if he put you in his calendar, he always respected the booking. He always honored the booking, even if somebody called him up, even if Prince, I mean, I don't know if this ever happened, but if Prince called him up and said, hey, I need a trumpet player, he supposedly would look in the calendar and say, sorry, I got a booking that day with Vic Ruggiero.
Right.
You know? I don't know. I probably would have let him off the hook if it was Prince. I'd say, please go play with Prince. I don't want you to hold a resentment against me for my life.
I'm trying. Oh, yeah, Frank London.
Frank London. That's him.
So he's on both. He's on both of the tracks.
Frank London. I remember being on the Age of Insects recording session. That one. He may have been on the earlier Age of Insects records, but the band itself was a kind of a put together band that was supposed to, in a very 60s sense, we were supposed to record the hits of the day, and we were recording them ska style. So if you had 70s records that did disco versions of every song.
But see, I never heard any other record by the Scandalous. Yeah. I saw other records, and I was like, I heard them, and I was like, this doesn't sound like the Scandalous All Stars.
No. So the Scandalous All Stars basically was an easy $100, for the day, and we would get paid, and they'd pay us $50 for a rehearsal. So it's like by the end of it, okay, maybe you have a rehearsal, maybe 2 days of recording, you come out of it with $250, pay your rent for the month back then, and it was great. And the first time we showed up, they made us play Nirvana, and then they made us play I'm a Creep by whatever band that was.
Radiohead.
I'm a Creep, yeah. And some other songs that I hated that we did these versions of. And I literally, a couple of them, I just played them, left. I think I sang, they made me sing Kiss, I Want to Rock and Roll All Night. I remember one time, one old girlfriend of mine was trying to play that for me at a party. She wanted to put it on the boombox. And it was one of those moments that I was feeling really bad about myself. And she was laughing and laughing. Come on, let's put it on, let's put it on. And I remember grabbing the CD and being like, please, I'm gonna literally jump out the window if you play this. Like, I can't deal right now. You know, I like fought her for the CD. You know, I finally got it in my hand. I was like, be thankful I don't toss this. You know. And the next record we did, we liked it a lot better because it was punk tunes done in ska and reggae versions, and we had fun with it. Marcus, our bass player from the Slackers, he sang a couple songs, and we even got to pick some of the songs that we played.
Right.
So we had fun. We had a lot of fun. And then the third record, I was ready to say, sorry. They asked me for a third record. I said, guys, I won't do it unless it's originals, and I write them.
Right.
And the guy, to my surprise, told me, yes, okay, come to my office and give me a rundown of the songs, play the songs for me. And so I asked him, I kind of said, hey, can you give me like a week? And he said, yeah, I'll give you like 4 or 5 days. Come by on whatever, Wednesday. So I show up in his office, you know, much like this, with a guitar and a notebook, and I played him the songs, and he was like, yeah, you got it. I'll get the band together. I'll hire you some good horn players. I'll get that guy Frank London from the Klezmatics and a bunch of other ringers, and we'll get people in. And he's like, who do you want to be your band? And I said, well, we can use the same band. Essentially, I said, I'd really love to do it with Ara and Vic Rice on bass. And they said, fine. And they gave me a budget even, and we got paid better than we got for the, not much better, slightly better. It was the only money I ever saw out of it. I think they immediately sold the record to Kmart after.
Oh man.
I don't think they even released it properly. No one knows that record exists. Except
That's a solid record, man. I don't know what they're doing.
It's really, I think it's really good.
But I was talking about the trumpet solo, and I was just like, I mean, that shit was, it was tasteful, it was complex. And
oh yeah,
that's the mark of like a great player. You can play a short solo and keep it interesting, and then like tie it up real nice.
On the song Columbus, Texas, he's unbelievable. You hear him play, he plays around those changes because he can play jazz.
Yeah.
And he just plays right around the changes. It's gorgeous. Yeah. And then on a song, I think it's called Clip the Cuffs on Officer.
There's another one too. There's an instrumental that there's a trumpet solo on.
To give credit where credit is due, Victor Rice wrote the 2 instrumentals on the song. FCC, the 2 instrumentals on the record. FCC and something, I can't remember. But those are Victor Rice numbers.
But the solo, there was a solo on the Bana. Mm-hmm. I'm talking about there's an instrumental track on there.
FCC, that's FCC, I think.
No, it's not. There's another one.
Oh yeah? Maybe it's called Disco Envy?
Nah.
Anyway, I don't know. But Victor wrote the 2 instrumentals, and so I'm less familiar with those. I mean, I can barely remember the names of the songs on the album right now. All I know is the ones I still play.
It's called Brother.
Oh, Brother. Yeah.
He took a really nice solo on like a plunger or a harmony.
If you're a trumpet fan, that record is great because, you know, Frank is world class.
Yeah, he is.
And actually, the sax player on that album too. He was the guy who was the musical director that gave me the go-ahead to make that album. And him too. He's world class. That guy can play. You name it, he plays it.
But you
wrote out the arrangements. It was fantastic.
I mean, you guys, everybody killed that album, and the arrangements, and the post-production or whatever, like, and there was a lot of concepts going on, and it just seems like everybody got everything in there, and it just came out real nice.
Yeah, the producer, the mixing engineers, the 2 engineers on the session, I can't remember the senior engineer's name, but he was great. And then the younger guy was a guy that I did some work with later on. His name was Roy. And Roy was up for, he was game. He was like, if I had an idea, he was ready to try it.
He's like, we're plugging it in.
So he allowed me a lot of freedom. And I went back on my free time with Roy and mixed a lot of that album I did the overdubs and mixed a lot of that album with Roy, just me and him. And we tried to slide all of our mixes through because, of course, it was an old record company style thing where you submitted your mixes, and then the producers that oversaw the whole production, picked it fine, like officially picked it with the suggestion of the musical director.
Right.
So I mean, this was like a union job, So some of the mixes that got picked were not my picks; they were not my favorites, and I was really pissed off on one of them because with the Age of Insects, the title track. I had a great mix where I had made Victor's bass sound like a giant rubber band, and I was so proud of myself for this mix. And later on, they went back in because it was analog. They went back in to remix it, and they got it almost exactly. Almost. I mean, these guys were pros, They got the mix almost exactly the same, minus that rubber band sound. And then they made sure that this one. The girl singer in the band, the female singer, said something really corny. At the end, it was something that they wanted her to say. It was like, "Fuck me like a cockroach you are," or something.
I remember that.
And I was just like, I was like, "Come on, guys!" I'm like, "That's really the song is deep, You don't have to do that." But that was the era, and the thing was
that dirt punk element at the end.
They just wanted something sexy. I think she sang 1 or 2 songs with me on the whole album. She was really not involved, and she was a ringer too. She was like many of them, where they hired her to come in and do a song, and that way she could get in the picture, So we have a girl in the band. She's cute. I mean, and to her credit, a very great singer and good musician all around. So. But it was one of those things where, a lot of the people just kind of came in for a photo op or, it's a way to pay your friends a few bucks for a gig,
Well, that song played out pretty well. I mean, you had a couple of John Coltrane style chaos moments at the end there.
Oh, I loved it. Yeah. Well, that's where I was going for. Actually, one of the trumpet moments that I like, Frank played was he did something that was very Albert Ayler kind of. He does this like ba 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 ba, this kind of
dissonant. Trying to figure out where that's from. I don't remember that one.
I don't remember what song it's on, but God, he blew me away. It sticks with me to this day. I never thought that I could play jazz because I don't have bebop on my fingers, that technique, but the